Most people believe politeness improves their reputation. They're taught that being respectful, agreeable, and easy to deal with makes others value them more. In controlled environments, that belief seems to work. But in real adult social dynamics, politeness often has the opposite effect. It quietly lowers how seriously people take you. This happens slowly, which is why most men don't notice it. There is no confrontation. No open disrespect. Just subtle changes. People interrupt you more. They question your decisions casually. They feel comfortable pushing your boundaries. And over time, your authority fades without anyone ever announcing it. The problem isn't manners. The problem is automatic politeness. When politeness becomes a reflex instead of a choice, it starts sending signals you don't intend. Signals that say you want approval. Signals that say you'll adjust before others have to. Signals that say your comfort matters less than keeping the interaction smooth. Human interaction doesn't run on fairness or intention. It runs on signals. Every conversation is a quiet negotiation of position. People don't consciously analyze this, but they respond to it immediately. When your behavior consistently prioritizes comfort over clarity, people sense flexibility. And flexibility invites pressure. This is why so many men are liked but rarely respected. They're included but not deferred to. Trusted but not taken seriously when decisions are made. Not because they lack competence, but because their behavior makes them easy to override. One of the fastest ways this happens is through overexplaining. Overexplaining usually feels responsible. You want to be clear. You want to avoid misunderstanding. You want to sound reasonable. But socially, excessive explanation doesn't communicate clarity. It communicates uncertainty. It tells people that your decision needs support to stand. When you explain too much, you turn statements into negotiations. You open space for debate where none was required. People may not consciously think he's insecure, but they react as if your words are flexible. They question more. They push back casually. They treat your position as provisional. Notice how people with authority communicate. They state outcomes. They give explanations only when there's a functional reason, not to protect their image. Their words feel settled because their position is settled. The less someone feels the need to justify themselves, the more weight their words carry. Overexplaining trains people to challenge you. Once that pattern forms, it becomes difficult to reverse. People start expecting reasons. They expect reassurance. They feel entitled to your internal process. And every time you comply, the expectation strengthens. This habit often comes from good intentions. Many men were rewarded for being thorough, cooperative, and considerate. But in adult hierarchies, constant explanation signals that you're seeking validation rather than holding position. The difference is subtle, but the consequences are not. Reducing over-explaining feels uncomfortable at first. Silence feels longer. Statements feel exposed. There's a sense that you're being abrupt or unclear, even when you're not. That discomfort isn't a mistake. It's the absence of cushioning you've relied on. When you stop explaining automatically, something shifts. People listen more carefully. They choose their words more precisely. They stop assuming access to your reasoning. Not because you demanded respect, but because your behavior stopped offering negotiation. Respect is rarely lost in dramatic moments. It erodes through small habits repeated daily. Over-explaining is one of those habits. It feels polite. It sounds professional. And it quietly teaches people how seriously to take you. Most men don't realize this until their reputation has already changed. By then, they feel frustrated without knowing why. They sense they're being overlooked but can't point to a single cause. The cause is rarely one big mistake. It's a pattern. And patterns can be changed, but only once you see what they're actually doing. Another polite habit that slowly weakens your reputation is default agreeableness. This is the tendency to say yes too quickly, to nod along even when you disagree, and to avoid friction whenever possible. On the surface, this behavior looks cooperative and mature. In reality, it quietly teaches people that your position is flexible. Agreeableness feels safe because it keeps interactions smooth. There's no tension, no awkwardness, no risk of being misunderstood. But social dynamics don't reward smoothness the way most people think they do. They reward independence. When you agree too easily, you remove the weight from your perspective. Your words stop influencing outcomes and start functioning as background noise. People rarely say this out loud, but they feel it immediately. When someone always agrees, their input becomes predictable. Predictability makes you easy to work around. Others begin making decisions before you speak. They assume your compliance. Not out of disrespect, but because your behavior trained that expectation. Many men confuse agreeableness with emotional intelligence. They believe that being easygoing makes them higher status. In practice, constant agreement signals that you value harmony more than accuracy. That trade-off is noticed. Over time, people stop checking in with you not because they dislike you, but because they don't expect resistance. Disagreement, when expressed calmly, is not aggression. It's evidence of independent thinking. People expect those with authority to have a point of view that doesn't shift instantly. When someone pauses before agreeing, it changes the tone of the conversation. Others slow down. They explain themselves more carefully. They stop assuming. Default agreeableness removes that effect entirely. This habit often develops early. Many people were rewarded for being agreeable in school, at work, and in family settings. Saying yes made life easier. Saying no created friction. Over time, agreement became automatic. But what worked in controlled environments doesn't translate well to adult social hierarchies where influence matters. The problem with constant agreement is not that you never push back. It's that when you finally do, it feels out of character. People react as if something is wrong even if your point is reasonable. They're not responding to the disagreement itself. They're reacting to the break-in pattern. This is why men who never disagree struggle to be taken seriously. Their eventual resistance is read as emotional instead of thoughtful. Because it comes late, it feels reactive instead of deliberate. You don't need to argue to correct this. You don't need to dominate conversations or force opposition. You simply need to stop agreeing automatically. A pause is often enough. A neutral response. A statement that you see things differently without justification or apology. When agreement becomes a choice instead of a reflex, it gains value. People start listening again because they don't know what you'll say. Uncertainty re-enters the interaction, and uncertainty creates respect. If you notice that people frequently decide things without you, talk over you, or assume you'll go along with whatever is proposed, look at how quickly you agree. In many cases, the behavior didn't just reflect your role. It created it. Agreeableness doesn't make you respected. It makes you manageable. And manageable people are rarely deferred to. Changing this habit will feel uncomfortable at first. You may feel like you're being difficult. You may worry that others will see you as uncooperative. That reaction is normal. It's the cost of shifting position. The men who are taken seriously are not the ones who avoid all friction. They're the ones who can tolerate it without needing to explain themselves. When you stop defaulting to agreement, conversations change. Expectations change. And gradually, how people treat you changes as well. Another polite habit that steadily erodes how people treat you is apologizing when no apology is necessary. This often sounds harmless, even responsible, but socially it sends a message you probably don't intend. It suggests that you expect to be at fault, even when nothing wrong has happened. An apology is not just a courtesy. It is a positioning signal. When used appropriately, it shows accountability and credibility. When used reflexively, it communicates self-doubt and lowered authority. People may not consciously register this, but they adjust their behavior around it almost immediately. Many men apologize to keep interactions smooth. They say sorry for asking questions, for taking time, for disagreeing, for needing clarification, or for setting basic boundaries. Each instance feels minor, but over time it creates a pattern. That pattern teaches others that inconvenience is associated with you, not the situation. Notice how apologies often replace neutral statements. Instead of saying, "I'll need a minute," people say, "Sorry, just 1 second." Instead of saying, "That doesn't work for me," they say, "Sorry, I can't." Instead of saying, "I disagree," they say, "Sorry, but..." These substitutions seem polite, but they subtly shift responsibility onto you. When you apologize unnecessarily, you frame yourself as the problem. Even if no one intended to blame you, the apology invites it. Others unconsciously accept the framing and begin expecting you to accommodate them. Over time, this lowers how seriously your time, preferences, and boundaries are taken. People with authority do apologize, but they do so selectively. Their apologies carry weight because they are rare and precise. When someone apologizes for everything, nothing feels firm. Their words lose impact because they appear uncertain about their right to occupy space. This habit is often reinforced by social conditioning. Many people were taught that apologizing is polite, humble, and emotionally intelligent. In reality, constant apologies are a form of appeasement. They signal that you are prioritizing emotional comfort over clarity and position. Watch how people behave around someone who rarely apologizes unnecessarily. They speak more carefully. They interrupt less. They consider requests more thoughtfully. Not because the person is intimidating, but because their presence doesn't invite casual pressure. Reducing unnecessary apologies doesn't mean becoming cold or dismissive. It means replacing apology language with neutral language. Statements instead of excuses. Clarity instead of self-blame. When something is your responsibility, take ownership. When it isn't, don't carry it. If people interrupt you, dismiss your time, or feel comfortable overstepping your limits, look closely at how often you apologize. In many cases, the behavior set the expectation long before the disrespect became visible. This change will feel uncomfortable at first. Silence will feel heavier. Neutral statements may feel abrupt. You may worry that others think you're being rude. That discomfort is not a mistake. It's the absence of a habit that was cushioning your interactions. Apologies are powerful when they are accurate. When they are automatic, they weaken your position. Removing unnecessary apologies doesn't make you less considerate. It makes your accountability meaningful again. Respect doesn't come from how often you say sorry. It comes from how clearly you stand where you belong. Another polite habit that quietly reduces how people respond to you is the urge to fill silence. Many men feel uncomfortable when a conversation pauses, so they rush to keep talking. They add extra details, repeat themselves, or change the subject just to avoid the feeling of dead air. In the moment, this feels socially smooth. Over time, it weakens your position. Silence has weight. When it appears, it creates pressure. Whoever rushes to relieve that pressure usually gives up control of the interaction. By filling silence automatically, you remove tension from the other person and absorb it yourself. The balance shifts, even if no one is aware it's happening. People who are comfortable with silence are often perceived as more confident, even when they say very little. This isn't because silence itself is impressive. It's because silence suggests self-control. It signals that you are not anxious to be understood, validated, or approved of. You are willing to let moments sit without rushing to manage how they feel. Many men fill silence because they fear judgment. A pause feels like disapproval. It feels like confusion. It feels like rejection. So they talk to repair something that was never broken. In doing so, they give away leverage. They turn neutral moments into explanations. Think about how conversations change when you stop doing this. When you answer a question and then stop, the other person becomes aware of the space. They reconsider what they said. Sometimes they add information they hadn't planned to share. Sometimes they soften their tone. Sometimes they clarify themselves without being asked. Silence shifts who is adjusting. This dynamic shows up clearly in meetings and negotiations. When someone asks a question and you respond immediately, the pace stays with them. When you pause briefly before answering, the rhythm changes. The pause doesn't have to be long. Even a second or two is enough to create recalibration. It signals that you are thinking, not reacting. Filling silence also makes your words less impactful. When you say too much, each sentence carries less weight. When you speak only when there's something to add, people listen more carefully. Your words stand out because they aren't buried in noise. This doesn't mean becoming quiet for the sake of appearing mysterious. It means allowing conversations to breathe. It means resisting the urge to smooth every moment. Silence is not a failure of communication. Often it's where communication actually happens. People with authority don't feel responsible for keeping others comfortable at all times. They allow pauses. They let questions hang. They don't rush to reassure. As a result, others adjust their behavior around them. They speak more deliberately. They choose their words more carefully. If you notice that people dominate conversations with you, interrupt you, or seem unusually relaxed pushing their agenda, pay attention to how quickly you fill gaps. In many cases, silence would have done the work for you. Learning to sit with silence takes practice. At first it feels awkward. You may feel exposed. You may worry that you're coming across as disengaged or unfriendly. That reaction is normal. It's the discomfort of removing a habit that once protected you. Over time, something shifts. Conversations slow down. People stop assuming. They wait for you to speak instead of talking over you. Your presence feels steadier, not louder. Talking less doesn't make you less relevant. In many situations, it makes every word you say matter more. Silence is not emptiness. It's space. And space, when you're comfortable holding it, changes how people treat you. Another polite habit that steadily weakens how people value you is excessive availability. This shows up as replying immediately, always being reachable, always making room for others regardless of your own priorities. On the surface, this looks responsible and considerate. Socially, it sends a different message. Availability communicates priority. When you are always available, you signal that your time is flexible and easily claimed. People may appreciate your responsiveness, but appreciation is not the same as respect. Over time, they stop treating your time as scarce, because you've taught them it isn't. This habit often develops with good intentions. You respond quickly to be polite. You stay longer than you want to avoid seeming rude. You rearrange your schedule so others aren't inconvenienced. Each action feels minor. Together they create a clear pattern. You are accessible on demand. People with higher perceived status behave differently. They are reachable but not instantly. They are present but not endlessly. Their time has structure, and that structure is not explained or apologized for. As a result, others plan around them instead of assuming access. Excessive availability removes anticipation from interactions. When someone knows you'll always reply right away, your response loses impact. There is no tension, no uncertainty, no sense that your attention needs to be earned. Predictability makes you easy to manage. This shows up in subtle ways. Messages sent late at night. Requests framed as assumptions. Meetings scheduled without consultation. None of these feel aggressive on their own. But they reveal how your availability is being interpreted. Many men confuse availability with reliability. They believe being always reachable makes them dependable. In reality, reliability comes from consistency, not immediacy. People respect those who deliver when it matters, not those who respond the fastest. Delaying a response does not mean ignoring someone. It means allowing your actions to reflect your priorities. A measured reply signals that your time is organized, not empty. Silence for a few hours or even a day is not disrespectful. It is neutral. And neutrality often reads as confidence. This is especially important in professional and social negotiations. The person who is most willing to wait usually holds more leverage. When you respond instantly, you surrender that leverage without realizing it. You move to accommodate before the other person has to adjust. Reducing availability will feel uncomfortable at first. You may worry that you're being perceived as unhelpful or distant. You may feel the urge to explain why you didn't respond right away. That urge is part of the habit you're removing. Notice how people react when your availability changes. Some will become more considerate. Some will adjust their expectations. A few may test boundaries. That reaction is not a problem. It's information about the dynamic you've been reinforcing. If people routinely assume you'll drop what you're doing, expect immediate responses, or feel entitled to your attention, look closely at how available you've made yourself. In many cases, the expectation didn't appear on its own. It was taught. Being consistently available doesn't make you important. It makes you convenient. And convenience is rarely respected. When your time has limits, your presence gains weight. When your attention is not guaranteed, it becomes valuable. People begin to think before they reach out. They choose moments more carefully. They stop assuming access. Respect grows in the space where availability is controlled, not constant. Another polite habit that consistently weakens how people treat you is softening your boundaries. This happens when you turn clear limits into explanations, jokes, or compromises you never intended to make. Instead of saying no, you say maybe. Instead of being firm, you cushion your words so no one feels uncomfortable. Soft boundaries feel considerate, but they create confusion. When your limits are unclear, people treat them as flexible. They push a little further each time, not because they are disrespectful by nature, but because your behavior tells them there is room to push. Over time, what started as politeness becomes permission. Many men soften boundaries to avoid being seen as difficult. They explain their reasons in detail. They add humor to reduce tension. They leave openings in their language so the other person feels accommodated. What they don't realize is that every softened boundary teaches people how seriously to take the next one. Clear boundaries don't require aggression. They require finality. When a limit is stated calmly and without excess justification, it carries weight. When it's padded with reasons, apologies, or reassurance, it invites negotiation. People respond accordingly. This habit often shows up in small moments. Agreeing to things you don't want to do. Letting interruptions slide. Allowing expectations to shift without saying anything. Each instance feels minor, but together they form a pattern. That pattern tells people that your limits are movable. People with solid boundaries are treated differently. Requests are more thoughtful. Assumptions disappear. Pushback is rare. Not because the person is intimidating, but because their limits are consistent and enforced without emotion. Softening boundaries also creates internal tension. You say yes when you mean no. You agree while feeling resentful. Over time, this erodes self-respect. And others sense that erosion even if they can't explain it. Confidence fades when your actions contradict your own limits. Replacing softened boundaries with clear ones will feel uncomfortable at first. You may worry about being perceived as cold or inflexible. Some people may react negatively. That reaction is not evidence that you're wrong. It's evidence that the dynamic has changed. Politeness becomes a problem when it overrides clarity. Civility is a choice. Compliance is a habit. One earns respect. The other dissolves it. At this point, a pattern should be clear. None of these habits look harmful on their own. Overexplaining. Agreeing too quickly. Apologizing unnecessarily. Filling silence. Being constantly available. Softening boundaries. Each one is socially rewarded. Each one feels polite. And each one quietly teaches people how to treat you. Respect is not lost in dramatic moments. It erodes through small signals repeated daily. Signals that say you will adjust first. Signals that say comfort matters more than position. Signals that say your limits are negotiable. Changing these habits doesn't require becoming harsh or confrontational. It requires becoming deliberate. Saying less, not more. Acting with intention instead of reflex. Allowing discomfort to exist without rushing to fix it. Some people will respond positively to this shift. Others will feel distance. A few may test you. That reaction is not a failure. It's information. It tells you which relationships were built on convenience and which can survive clarity. Politeness still has a place. Civility still matters. But when politeness becomes automatic, it stops protecting your reputation and starts costing you. Respect grows where behavior is consistent, boundaries are clear, and comfort is not the highest priority. If you change nothing else, remember this. People don't treat you based on what you intend. They treat you based on what you allow. And what you allow, you teach. If this perspective helped you see your interactions more clearly, stay here. This channel focuses on social dynamics, human behavior, and the patterns most people never question. Subscribe to MindStrict if you want more grounded breakdowns like this, without motivation, without hype, and without pretending the world works differently than it does. The way people treat you can change. But only after your behavior does.